Hear me clearly. Nobody can control a person who knows exactly what they want. You can't dangle distractions in front of someone who's locked in. You can't tempt a focused mind with shortcuts, excuses, or comfort. The problem isn't that. Life is holding you back. The problem is too many of you are waking up without direction, moving without intention, living like life is just happening to you instead of being built by you. I need you to stop drifting. Stop waking up like an accident. Stop reacting to whatever shows up. Ask yourself, what do I want? Not what sounds good. Not what looks good on social media. What do you want in your health? In your family? In your finances? In your legacy? Because the moment you get clear, you become dangerous. Once you know what you want, the rest of your life should be spent waking up and going after it with everything you have. Let me be real with you. There is no excuse. Not where you came from, not who raised you, not what you didn't have. Excuses don't build strong minds. Excuses don't build strong bodies. Excuses don't build strong futures. The moment your life changes is the moment you stop waiting on life and decide to change yourself. No new parents, no new environment, no perfect timing. Just a new mindset. At some point, you've got to decide that you're done being a victim. Done waiting for good things to fall into your lap. Done hoping somebody notices your pain. You've got to decide that you're going to grind, fight, learn, press, and show up every single day, not when you feel like it, but because your future depends on it. Understand this. Winning is not an accident. Losing becomes a habit when you tolerate it. If you allow excuses to live in your mind, they will turn into a culture. But when you demand more from yourself, when your desire gets so strong that comfort doesn't matter anymore, that's when everything shifts. And hear this part with your spirit. You don't succeed by wanting it casually. You succeed when you want it the same way you want to breathe. When success becomes non-negotiable, when sleep becomes optional, when distractions lose their power, when your craft becomes sacred. When quitting is no longer a language you speak. This is that moment. This is the line in the sand. Strong body, total commitment. Because from this point forward, it's not partial effort. It's not excuses. It's not comfort. It's 120%. Or nothing. Listen to me closely. The moment you know exactly what you want, your life stops being negotiable. You stop being pulled in every direction. You stop being distracted by things that look good, but don't move you forward. Because clarity gives you control. When you don't know what you want, everything looks like an opportunity. Every invitation feels necessary. Every opinion sounds important. And that's how people end up living lives they never chose. Most people aren't tired because they're working too hard. They're tired because they're working on the wrong things. They're chasing what other people told them success should look like. Somebody else's definition, somebody else's timeline, somebody else's dream. And when you live like that, you're easy to manipulate, easy to distract, easy to settle. Because if you don't decide what you want, the world will decide. For you. Clarity is dangerous. Clarity makes you disciplined. When you know what you want, you stop explaining yourself to people who don't matter. You stop chasing validation. You stop saying yes to things that cost you your future. You don't need motivation when you're clear. You don't need reminders. You don't need somebody to push you. Because every morning you wake up already knowing what you're after. And here's the truth most people don't want to hear. Lack of clarity is comfortable. Because when you don't decide, you don't have to commit. When you don't commit, you don't have to sacrifice. And when you don't sacrifice, you always have an excuse. But the price of comfort is control. You give it up. Your time gets wasted. Your energy gets drained. Your potential stays locked up. When you get clear, distractions stop working. You can't be bribed with short-term pleasure when you're focused on long-term purpose. You don't chase everything that shines. You don't respond to every noise. You move different. You talk different. You train different. Because you're not guessing anymore. You're intentional. Clarity forces standards. You stop tolerating what doesn't align. You stop entertaining people who don't respect your vision. You stop letting bad habits live rent-free in your life. Because once you know what you want, Everything else either supports it or threatens it. And you don't negotiate with threats. This is where strong minds are built, not in motivation. Indecision. When you decide what you want, your mind gets sharper, your body follows, your habits line up. Your discipline increases, because now there's something at stake. Now quitting costs too much. Now excuses sound weak even to yourself. People who lack clarity wake up reactive. People with clarity wake up on assignment. They don't wait to see how the day goes. They tell the day how it's going to go. They don't drift into their future. They walk into it with purpose, pressure, and precision. And once you get clear, you don't need to convince anyone. You don't need applause. You don't need permission. You just move. You wake up and go after it. Every day, relentlessly, focused, hungry, locked in. Let me make this plain. Being a victim might explain where you are, but it will never get you where you're supposed to go. Life will hit you. Life will knock you down. Life will deal some of us hands we did not ask for. But at some point, you've got to stop telling the story of what happened to you and start taking responsibility for what happens next. Because pain is real, but staying powerless is a choice. Some of you have mastered the art of explaining why you can't win. You've got receipts for your struggle. You've got evidence for your excuses. And every time life challenges you, you reach for your past like a shield. But hear me clearly, your past is not your permission slip to stay stuck. What you've been through might be unfair, but letting it define you is optional. The victim mindset is dangerous because it feels justified. It sounds logical. It gets sympathy. People will pat you on the back and say, "You're right, you didn't deserve that." But sympathy won't change your bank account. Sympathy won't strengthen your body. Sympathy won't heal your mindset. Sympathy will sit with you while your potential dies quietly. The moment you see yourself as a victim, you give away your power. You start waiting for an apology, waiting for closure, waiting for someone to fix what broke you. And while you're waiting, time keeps moving. Opportunities keep passing. Life doesn't pause because you were hurt. No victim ever builds discipline. No victim ever develops consistency. Because discipline requires ownership. Consistency requires responsibility. You can't say this is my life and this is not my fault at the same time. One cancels the other. The shift happens when you stop asking, "Why did this happen to me?" and start asking, "What am I going to do about it?" That question changes everything. It takes you out of the past and puts you in the present. It turns pain into fuel. It turns setbacks into setups. It turns excuses into execution. You don't need new parents. You don't need a new childhood. You don't need perfect circumstances. What you need is a decision. A decision that says, "I refuse to let what happened to me steal what's possible for me." A decision that says, "I'm not waiting on life anymore. I'm attacking it." Strong minds are built when you stop blaming and start building. Strong bodies are built when you stop complaining and start conditioning. Every time you choose effort over excuse, you reclaim a piece of your power. Every rep, every early morning, every hard conversation, every disciplined choice is you declaring, "I'm not a victim. I'm in control." People who win don't have easier lives. They just stop making excuses louder than their work. They stop letting pain run the show. They stop negotiating with weakness. They accept responsibility, not because it's fair, but because it's necessary. The day you stop seeing yourself as a victim is the day your life stops happening to you and starts responding to you. Let me tell you something most people don't want to admit. Success does not respond to interest. It responds to obsession. You don't get extraordinary results by kind of wanting it. You don't break through limits by wishing, hoping, or talking about it. You break through when the desire gets so deep that quitting is no longer an option, when wanting it becomes a necessity, not a preference. A lot of people say they want success, but they want comfort more. They want rest more. They want approval more. They want to look cool more. And because of that, their effort stays average. Their work stays inconsistent. Their results stay small. Because success has a language, and that language is sacrifice. When you're obsessed, you don't need reminders. You don't need motivation videos every morning. You don't need somebody checking on you. Obsession wakes you up before the alarm. Obsession keeps you working when nobody's watching. Obsession has you studying, training, sharpening your craft while others are scrolling and complaining. Here's the difference between desire and obsession. Desire negotiates. Obsession demands. Desire asks, how long will this take? Obsession asks, what else do I need to give? Desire quits when it gets uncomfortable. Obsession gets uncomfortable and keeps going anyway. Think about breathing. When you can't breathe, nothing else matters. You don't care about your phone. You don't care about entertainment. You don't care about what people think. All your energy goes to one thing: air. That's the level success requires. Not balance, not convenience, priority. Most people never reach that level because obsession exposes who you really are. It exposes your habits. It exposes your discipline. It exposes what you love more than your dreams. And that's uncomfortable, so people stay casual. They stay interested. They stay talking instead of transforming. Obsession builds resilience. When you want it that bad, rejection doesn't stop you. Failure doesn't break you. Criticism doesn't slow you down. You don't see obstacles as signs to quit. You see them as tests to pass. Because when something is non-negotiable, you find a way. Strong minds are forged in obsession. Strong bodies are built when the mind refuses to quit. When the mind says, one more rep. When the mind says, one more hour. When the mind says, I don't feel like it, but I'm doing it anyway. That's obsession. That's hunger. And let me be clear, this isn't about being reckless. It's about being relentless. It's about aligning every decision, every habit, every sacrifice with one outcome. It's about wanting your future more than you want your comfort right now. People who win don't have superhuman talent. They have uncommon desire. A desire so strong that sleep becomes optional. A desire so strong that distractions lose their power. A desire so strong that excuses sound weak even in their own head. The moment you stop kind of wanting it and start needing it, your effort changes. Your discipline changes. Your standards change. Your life starts responding to you differently. Let me say this straight. Winning is not random. Losing is not bad luck. What you repeatedly allow becomes what you repeatedly experience. And if you don't check it early, it turns into a culture. A culture of excuses. A culture of settling. A culture where losing feels normal and winning feels uncomfortable. See, winners don't just win once. They create habits that produce winning outcomes over and over again. They show up on time. They finish what they start. They do the work even when nobody's watching. And over time, that behavior becomes who they are. Not because they're special, but because they're consistent. But the same thing happens on the other side. If you keep letting things slide, if you keep saying, it's okay when it's not, if you keep tolerating disrespect, laziness, inconsistency, and excuses, you're training yourself to lose. And once losing becomes familiar, you stop fighting. You start expecting it. You start planning for it. That's how people end up stuck. Not because they failed once, but because they built a system around failure. They normalize being late. They normalize being unprepared. They normalize quitting. And when you normalize losing, it stops hurting. That's dangerous. A winning culture starts in your mind before it ever shows up in your results. It starts with standards, what you tolerate, what you allow, what you excuse. Winners don't tolerate weakness in their habits. They don't entertain negative talk. They don't surround themselves with people who drain their vision. They protect their environment because they understand environment shapes behavior. You can't live like a champion part-time and expect full-time results. You can't turn discipline on and off. You can't work hard on Monday and disappear on Tuesday. Winning demands consistency every day, when it's boring, when it's hard, when it feels like nothing is changing. And hear me, winning doesn't mean you never lose. It means you don't stay down. It means every setback becomes a lesson, not an excuse. Winners review their losses. Losers relive them. Winners ask, what do I need to fix? Losers ask, why did this happen to me? Strong minds are built in winning cultures. Strong bodies are built in winning cultures. Because when your environment demands excellence, your effort rises to meet it. You train harder. You think sharper. You move with purpose. You stop playing games with your potential. Look at your daily routine. Look at your circle. Look at your habits. Are they producing wins or are they producing comfort? Because comfort is the gateway to losing. It feels good now, but it costs you later, the moment you decide to raise your standards. Life starts responding differently. When you stop accepting average, average stops showing up. When you stop tolerating excuses, excuses lose their power. Winning becomes familiar. Winning becomes expected. Winning becomes who you are. You don't accidentally build a winning life. You build it choice by choice, day by day, rep by rep, decision by decision, until winning is no longer something you chase. It's something you live. Let me tell you why most people never reach the next level. It's not because they're not talented. It's not because they're not smart. It's because what they're doing isn't sacred to them. They treat their calling like a hobby. They treat their gift like an option. And anything you can walk away from when you're tired will never take you where you're supposed to go. When something is sacred, you don't negotiate with your feelings. You don't ask yourself if you're in the mood. You don't wait for motivation to show up. Sacred means it's bigger than how you feel. Sacred means it's non-negotiable. Sacred means even on the days you're drained, frustrated, and doubting yourself, you still show up, because quitting is not on the table. Discipline isn't punishment. Discipline is respect. It's how you honor what's been placed inside you. If you really respected your potential, you wouldn't keep hitting snooze. If you really honored your gift, you wouldn't give it leftover energy. If you really believed your purpose mattered, you wouldn't keep showing up halfway. See, people quit because what they're chasing isn't deep enough. Money won't hold you when it gets hard. Applause won't keep you consistent when nobody's watching. Recognition won't wake you up early or keep you late. But when something is sacred, when it's connected to who you are, when it's tied to your identity, you endure things other people run from. Strong minds are built when discipline becomes automatic. When doing the work is no longer a debate. When your standards are so high that excuses feel embarrassing. Strong bodies are built the same way. You don't train when you feel like it. You train because that's who you are. That's the code you live by. Sacred discipline changes how you move. You protect your energy. You guard your time. You become intentional about what you consume, who you listen to, and where you show up. Because you understand that your purpose requires preparation. You don't play with your health. You don't play with your craft. You don't play with your mindset. Most people want freedom, but they don't want structure. They want results, but they don't want routine. They want greatness, but they don't want to give anything up. But discipline is the bridge. Discipline is the price. And the price doesn't go down just because you don't feel like paying it. When your work becomes sacred, quitting feels like betrayal. Not to other people, but to yourself. And that's a different kind of accountability. That's internal. That's powerful. That's when you stop needing reminders and start living with intention. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You rise to the level of your discipline. And discipline only lasts when it's rooted in something deeper than convenience. When your mind is trained, when your body is conditioned, when your habits are aligned, effort becomes identity. Sacred discipline doesn't just change what you do. It changes who you become.